Do you think a 10-year-old can consent to throwing away their future sexual function as an adult? How can they possibly make that decision?
If they've been living their truth for a long time, then yeah.
You guys, welcome back to part 2 of Children Cannot Consent to Medical Transition. Before we get started, this video is sponsored by Undertac. Let's jump into the video. They seem to think that people are against trans people or against their rights, trans rights. I don't think the conversation's really about that.
No, that's just the mantra. It's always trans rights are human rights. Yes, trans rights are human rights because they're humans. And they have the same human rights as anyone else.
We're getting blocked here.
Yeah, that's standard. We're out here having conversations or trying.
We're trying.
Mobbed a little bit right now.
Clinics have been lying to the public about the safety of puberty blockers.
So you're against this protest that's happening here in support of transitioning children?
I'm not against any protesting. I'm against the misinformation. We now know that hormone blockers permanently destroy sexual function in male children who want to be girls. In previous studies, well over 50% of DSM diagnosed, that is clinical gender dysphoria, children would grow up to be likely gay or lesbian, not transgender.
Do we need to move this?
Don't touch my sign.
What?
Don't touch my sign.
She's blocking the camera and you try to grab the sign and she goes, don't touch my sign.
I'm a lesbian-leaning bisexual. I've been married to a lesbian for over 20 years. This is a danger to same-sex attracted youth. You all need to own your trail of damage.
That's fine. Don't worry if they touch you.
Don't touch my sign.
Get it out of the way. You don't have the right to put it in our face.
She said that's assault.
Let go of my sign.
All right.
You don't have the right to do that.
Back the out. You're not going to touch us.
You guys came here
Don't touch
intentionally.
me.
You can go somewhere
You
else.
came here intentionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same. Let's go to the outside so we can try to have a couple conversations.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Sure.
All right.
What's happening is you have all these kids who feel like misfits. They're not fitting in. These autistic kids aren't feeling like they fit in. You've got a lot of kids who would historically grow up to be gay who aren't feeling like they fit in. You've got kids who've suffered abuse and trauma, sexual abuse. Kids in the foster system are way overrepresented among the transgender population. These are all kids who are struggling with something. They've got some other comorbidity going on. They've got other mental health issues going on. And they're being fast-tracked onto this medical pathway that gives them drugs which stop their body's natural development, give them hormones that don't belong in their bodies,
Yeah,
at all the gender clinics at every children's hospital in the country.
Hundreds of them now.
No, I know plenty of people who are trans, and it's one of the most painful processes on earth trying to get the hormones you feel like you need.
It's not true.
Like that is true. I don't think I've heard of a single case where people are getting fast-tracked into the.
I can walk you across the street to come talk to Chloe Cole here, who had her breasts cut off when she was 15 years old.
I wrote a whole article on it, plenty of examples. Mentally unstable, 16-year-olds.
That sounds pretty anecdotal
being
to me.
recommended.
The practice has changed in recent years. It's gone away from the mental health approach with therapy to immediate affirmation only.
I don't think that's true.
Okay, I understand why you would feel that way. I totally get it. But it's just not the case. And in fact, WPATH, which is the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, they just had their annual conference in Montreal. Some protesters stood up in the conference to say that they need to abolish all therapy completely before any surgical or medical interventions. And they all received a standing ovation, including from the leadership. We've got Laura Edwards-Leeper, who founded the first gender clinic in Boston 15 years ago. She brought the Dutch protocol over here. She trained under the experts in Holland, who started what's called the Dutch protocol. She brought it over to the US. When they brought it to the US, they ignored some other requirements, and they started giving hormones to kids younger, because under the Dutch protocol, they said don't give them to them until they're 16. But they'll do it here at 13. Johanna Olsen-Kennedy at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles just received a $5.7 million grant from the NIH, where they were allowed to reduce the age for cross-sex hormones from 13 to 8 years old if the kid's already in the certain tanner stage of puberty.
Would you
But anyway,
agree with
the point
agree
is,
with doing this stuff later, maybe?
Whenever the person wants to do it.
Oh, so whenever.
Yeah, I don't give a
No,
about my
then-
body.
All right, you guys, let's take a quick second to talk about today's sponsor. The holidays are coming up, and I have the perfect gift offer from our friends over at Undertac, the official underwear of this channel. You guys, buy 3, get 1 free. I'll tell you how in a second. First, let me tell you why I threw out all my other briefs and replaced them with Undertac. For starters, they don't have some creepy old dude's name on their waistband because That's embarrassing. They're made with high-quality material that's antibacterial, moisture-wicking, so you stay fresh and dry all day long. They come with a sturdy yet comfortable extra-wide waistband, and the fly design doesn't pinch your business. That's pretty important. Undertack is durable, ultralight, fade-resistant, and shrink-resistant. And here's the best part. They're almost 30% less than the competition, and here's how you get their special holiday offer. You guys go to getundertack.com. That's getundertack.com. When you buy 3 pairs, right now you get the 4th pair free, but only with the offer code Klug. There's literally nothing to lose here. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. That's because this brand has been battle tested by Special Forces units. And if this isn't enough, Undertack donates a portion of its profits to veteran-run organizations that are actively fighting human trafficking. Support a company that doesn't hate your values. Visit getundertack.com. That's getundertack.com. Offer code Klug. Let's get back into the video. So what's going on? Are you a part of which group are you a part of? You seem to be very, very nice. You're very friendly.
Thank you.
But you disagree with him on this, or no?
Not exactly.
Okay.
I think there's a middle ground that we all have to meet in terms of, there's this whole socio-political movement that's surrounding children and mental health, and I think that it needs to go back to more comprehensive views of medical literature. When there's any inequality and people realize it and want, things to get better, it's like a pendulum that swings the other way. And I think it's gone too far in terms of kids transitioning and being able to have their parents basically put them into positions where they have to transition. I think that's up that.
And I'm glad that you're definitely acknowledging that Chris here is talking about children. I think we've had a lot of people that we've run into a lot of people today that are basically saying, oh well, trans people exist, trans rights are human rights. It's not the conversation. We're talking about children transitioning their gender at a very young age through hormones, surgical procedures, etc. that we're opposing.
Here's the crazy thing: is that every single medical organization, reliable medical organization in the United States at least, disagrees with your point and says that it is perfectly fine and healthy to give these hormones to kids if they ask for it.
So the AAP is ignoring calls from within their own body to do a systematic review.
But what does the AAP say?
What we're asking the AAP to do is a systematic review of all the studies that have ever been done, because this is done in Sweden.
If that happens, if that happens and the AAP comes back after that systematic review and says, we think this is totally fine, we think that this is completely healthy and a reasonable thing to do, will you then support it?
I want them to follow the science. If the science supported this,
it does.
What about
it doesn't. Do me a favor, go to my Twitter account. You'll find an article written by Lior Sapir.
I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not
going over 15 different studies. These are the studies that Jack Turban used to justify transitioning kids. This is the science, my friend. I'm asking you to read the science.
It's not a science.
That's not a science. Less than 1% of people
you don't even want to read it. You say you want to follow the science, but you don't want to read the science.
I don't want to read your bullshit science. No, I don't.
I think that there should be a more comprehensive view of mental health and how that kind of coincides with people being trans or believing that they're trans. I think there's a certain age, which is maybe 16, where they can decide to go on hormones.
Okay.
But that's just my personal...
You have a way different viewpoint than a lot of the people here. Would you consider yourself more with that group over there of protesters?
I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a part of any group. I just think that being able to talk to people and have discourse on either side is beneficial for people's, just growth.
What is going on here? We love this girl.
That's right.
I think it's bull science, and I don't give a
credit.
I know it's bull science.
All right. So if you look at the most recent study into gender dysphoria, they followed 139 boys from the age of 5 all the way into their 20s. 87.8% of them saw their gender dysphoria desist when they went through puberty. 64% grew up to be gay. The Academy of Medicine in France just came out a few months ago and said it's impossible to tell which of these kids will see their gender dysphoria go away and which will not.
They're not doing surgeries on
all
kids
the studies
who are
we have
under
into
18.
this.
You can't.
Yes,
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. There is no doctor.
What's your basis for saying that?
The law. There's no doctor in the United States who will give you who will do a irreversible surgery under the age of 18. That's just not true.
Chloe Cole is across the street. She had her breast cut off at 15. Do you want to come talk to her?
Mastectomy is that's
you want to come talk to her?
Was it for cancer or was it for
gender?
That's not true.
Come talk to her.
No.
Well, hold on.
She's right across the street.
You said something that's objectively not true. We have somebody that can prove you wrong. Literally had it happen to her when she was 15 years old, and you don't want to hear from that.
Sounds pretty anecdotal to me.
My name's Scott Nugent. I'm a 49-year-old transgender man, lesbian who medically transitioned from a woman to a man. woman to a trans man, right? When you allow your child to medically transition, I mean, you think about it. You're giving them a toy, giving them what they want. They're gonna be like kind of happy about that, and then they're gonna be happy because they're gonna start, they're gonna start hormones, and they start hormones, and that doesn't help anything. But I still have to have my top surgery. When that happens, I'll feel better. And so it's such a huge process that the reality of what you've done takes 7 to 10 years. That's why the only long-term study says that these kids that are medically transitioning for suicidal ideation, which is absolutely ludicrous, those children will grow up to be way more suicidal 7 to 10 years after. In fact, in the trans community, we call it the 7 to 10 year suicide itch. Once you finish medical transition, you get to kind of look left and look right and go, well, I didn't fix a thing. Everything that you have done for that long, it starts to weigh on you like, God, why did I do that? I'm such an idiot, this or that. Instead of just going into the process of, let's say, you're a feminine dude and you want to wear makeup, go for it.
I've got video from Kaiser Permanente in Oakland, California, where the doctor is admitting that the youngest patient they've cut the breasts off of is 12 years old. It's on video, my friend.
I'm willing to bet you right now that that's an edited video where the doctor was talking about how the person had cancer, breast cancer, and had to cut it off.
Or maybe the child had severe depression.
There's nothing you can do when people don't want to know the truth, right? There's nothing you can do.
Mental health doesn't matter.
We should be able to talk about this more than anything. Yet
Yeah.
these people just want to shut down conversation.
Yeah, no, and I'm a big proponent of there being like resources for trans kids, but I don't think that hormones and puberty blockers should be the first, initial.
And you were telling me earlier that the trans population should be infinitesimally small,
Yeah.
as it used to be.
Yeah.
And now we have 10% of kids in high school saying they're trans.
It's because people are starting to view gender as an abstract thing that's, kind of separate from, and I personally believe that identity is completely subjective. I can view myself however I want to. You can view me however you want to.
Do you think that could be potentially creating a somewhat of a mental health crisis in the country, though?
I believe that how vague the criteria has been made for being trans has sort of made people who are just confused or have low self-esteem start to question their gender identity.
The parents that are medically transitioning their kids right now, they're making them more suicidal. They're just they're pausing the suicide. They're pausing the suicide.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
10 years after the fact in that Swedish study,
Yeah.
the suicide rates were 19 times higher than their peers.
I hope you guys know that in 50 years, when your grandkids are looking at these, they're going to be ashamed of you, just like the.
Do you want to see a Boston Children's Hospital video that I tweeted out where they talk about
defending
doing double mastectomies?
defending against the cutting up of children is
Here,
the moral
I'll bring it up
stance
for
to
you.
I really believe that you believe that.
they can consent to that, huh?
Puberty blockers? Well, puberty blockers are 100% reversible, so yes.
And top surgeries as well. That's happening for people under the age of 18.
Right, but they're reversible. You can.
They're reversible with zero damage. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's zero damage, but in the majority of cases, it's reversible with almost no damage.
The reason why a lot of them advocate for hormone blockers before puberty is to prevent the testicles from developing. Children that do that are young males, end up with a micropenis for the rest of their life.
Well, if they feel like that's what they need to do, I support it. I think everyone should be able to do whatever they want with their own body. That's why I support abortion.
Things don't work that way when it comes to 10-year-olds making their own decisions. And literally, you can't drink, you can't get a tattoo, you can't go see rated R movies, but you can cut into your body because you feel like that's the right decision when you're 10.
If your doctor and your therapist agree, then yes, which is what's required in order to do any of that in the United States.
All right, so this is a video by Boston Children's Hospital.
Pro transgender video.
Okay.
Child transitioning video, just to clarify.
Okay.
In the United States. For top surgery, you are requested, but not required, to have been on gender-affirming hormones for at least a year. Many surgical centers require you to be 18 for top surgeries. We'll see people as young as age 15 if they've been affirmed in their gender for a long period of time and don't really.
So what are your thoughts about that?
Sounds fine to me.
Well, you said it's not happening, so it is though, right?
I was incorrect
Okay, so we're
about
going to acknowledge that?
Yeah, I was incorrect about that for sure.
What else do you think you might be incorrect about?
Well, I'm sure plenty of things.
You were very confident about that 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, and like any reasonable person, I can say
So
when I
now
was
do you
wrong.
believe that they cut off the breast of a 12-year-old at Kaiser Permanente? Or do I need to show you that video too?
Were they affirming to their chosen gender for a long time, the way they said they have to be in that video?
Well, they don't have to be. They request it.
That's it, as long as they have been.
No, in fact, you can get these letters of approval for surgery over the phone. There was a Pride Festival in Madison, Wisconsin a few weeks ago. Someone set up a tent with a sandwich board saying trans or non-binary, free letters of recommendation for surgery. You could just walk up to the tent, get your letter for surgery that you need. Do you think that's the level of safeguarding we need for a lot of these kids who are struggling with other mental health comorbidities?
If they want to transition, then yeah.
Okay, so a second ago it wasn't happening. Now you acknowledge that it is happening and it's totally fine if there's no safeguards.
I mean, I don't think there should be zero safeguards. I think there should be safeguards like for any medical procedure whatsoever. But, you know, it's not my choice.
Especially to children, I don't think that children can really grasp this like really abstract concept of gender.
Why do you think that the people that we've been talking to today, why do you think that they are so set in their beliefs that a child can make that decision? Because a lot of these people will say, hey, 7 years old. Is that crazy?
No, I personally don't think that a 7-year-old has the competency to be able to make those kinds of life-altering decisions, but that's just my personal take on it, just knowing 7-year-olds, you know.
Do you think a 10-year-old can consent to throwing away their future sexual function as an adult? How can they possibly make that decision?
If they've been living their truth for a long time, then yeah. If they've truly wanted to live, let's say if someone's born male with male genitalia and they want to have female genitalia and they've been living that truth their entire life, entirely off their own choice, then yeah, I do.
So you think a 10-year-old?
I don't think we're going to change.
Yeah,
he believes a 10-year-old can consent to that. I'm not sure if we're going to change any minds.
As long as you guys can agree that there are trans people that are adults that exist, you know what I mean, and that they were trans as kids to whatever extent, you know.
We all want adults to be as happy as they can be.
Right.
I think there's a very disingenuous, borderline dark push to put us in that box of, oh, you are defending children and you don't think they're mature enough to consent to these life-altering decisions. Therefore, here comes the disingenuous argument, you don't believe trans people exist. It's like, what? You're not even, that's not even close to the same conversation.
I think it's because the views of this whole situation have been so polarized that people have a hard time like keeping like, you know, a mental check on like these both extremes like have points that are valid.
Perhaps they're only consuming the extreme point that they oppose. Yeah. And then they meet somebody that's trying to have a conversation and they pin that on you.
Basically.
The world is better when everyone acts in good faith. I don't hate y'all because I think you really believe what you believe. I just know you're wrong. And I think that hopefully in 10, 15 years, or sooner preferably, you'll see that trans people are just as human as the rest of us, and if they want to live their own truth, they can.
We believe that. It's a children conversation. I know people that are trans. I have no problem with that.
So you fully support transgender people once they're 18?
Oh yeah. That's not our... Do you have any problem with that?
I'm out here talking about what's happening to kids, man.
But you personally, do you support transgender people? Do you believe
I've got transgender friends who support me in this crusade I'm on. I mean, there are situations today where 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds are still getting into this too quickly. There should still be more therapy.
Right.
You know, but of course, if an adult wants to do something, they're an adult.
Right.
But they need to understand all the ramifications of what they're signing up for, and they're not always getting that.
No.
So that's a problem too. But
Definitely.
no, I'm talking about kids. You know,
Right.
I've got adults who identify as trans, and they support what I'm doing.
No,
What's going on today with kids is totally crazy. It's exploded.
Yeah.
Numbers have exploded. Doesn't make any sense. A lot of these kids will grow up to be gay.
Yeah.
So it's harming gay kids. It's harming autistic kids, and we need to be able to talk about it.
Are tomboys still a thing? Is that extinct?
You know what?
With all this celebration,
degree,
it's like tomboys. That's a real thing, and I know many
extent,
tomboys that grow up to be, beautiful women. Is that with all this celebration? I also worry that that's like an extinct group. Is sure, some women are, young girls are going to be more masculine. Maybe they're into what the boys are doing. It's cool.
Right.
What boys do is pretty cool. Like,
do we forget what kids are like?
Yeah.
And do we forget what teenage girls are like? Like, it's popular now to identify as trans. It's a craze.
It is.
And you get rewarded socially for it.
It is. It's
Whereas you don't get rewarded socially for being straight. And it shouldn't matter what you are. There's a reward mechanism going on here.
Why do you think there is a reward for that? It could be a very serious condition. Yeah. It is a serious thing, and it should be handled in a serious manner.
I think it's because people don't understand the pain that comes with being transgender. It's a very painful existence.
Doesn't people making a fashionable statement of being transgender take away from the seriousness of people that are actually struggling with it?
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
You don't worry about it at all.
I've always been like anti like transtrender or whatever, just because
Transtrender, you said?
it makes a mockery out of trans people. It makes trans people seem like, they just decided to, transition when people who are actually trans suffer like their whole lives, even after transition, because how can anyone who's female be a male?
I had the phalloplasty. The phalloplasty is the bottom surgery. Now, the phalloplasty has a 67% complication rate. I had a reoccurring infection for 17 months. I went from ER to ER, and I realized quickly that medical transition is experimental. And when you're sick because of medical, because transgender health, you learn real quick that nobody really knows what to do, and that it is not. There are no baselines for how they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to fix things. So the truth about medical transition is it's all experimental, except for mastectomies and breast augmentations. It's all, we don't know what's going to happen to these kids, and that's the truth.
And I always say, whether you believe in God or evolution, this makes no sense. Because if you believe in God, you're saying God made us wrong. And if you believe in evolution, you're saying that 1 billion years of the process of natural selection has somehow failed, and now a pharmaceutical company is here to help our children be who they really are? For the first time in human history in this little 10-year window?
All right, everyone, that is it for today. So we had some pretty good conversations, a lot of screaming. Chris, how do you think the conversations went today?
I think it was phenomenal. These people were more polite than a lot of these Antifa folks regularly are. We had some good conversations. I didn't get mobbed too much. There was no violence, so I'm happy.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And where can people find you to support your work?
My website, billboardchris.com. They'll find my Twitter feed on there as well. It's @billboardchris, and there's a donate button on there if they want to help me out.
You guys, I will put a link down in the description below, so make sure you hit that to support Chris and his work. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe for more videos, and hit that bell notification button so you're notified next time I post. We'll see you guys next time. Try petting a dog in all my videos to lighten up the mood a little bit. There's no dogs around here. We might have to go find one.
Maybe some identify.